Hello Home Slices, it's here with Home Slice Adulting, coming to you with my very first Get Ready With Me video. Today is a very special day for a few reasons, but before I list those reasons, I want to say thank you to all of my subscribers for coming with me into this new year. Thank you for standing by my side when I was absent from YouTube for 3 months. And I also want to say thank you to all of the new subscribers I gained over those 3 months. Even though I was not posting regularly, I did gain quite a few subscribers, so thank you for tagging along. Now, like I said, today is a special day. For one reason, it is my boyfriend's birthday today. So I decided that I would get a little fancy, you know, for him because it is a special occasion and I have a few surprises planned for him today. Also, it is the second day of the year and it is time for us to kick into high gear with those New Year's resolutions. Now, I'm just going to be doing my makeup right now. I just got out of the shower, just washed my face. So I am going to be starting from, you know, the very beginning, starting from scratch and trying to beat my face in an hour or so. And during that time, I'm just going to be talking about highlights from last year, things that I want to accomplish this year, and all that jazz. So I guess let's get started. So highlights from last year include me doing my graduate school search. During the month of February last year, I traveled to a bunch of different places to do graduate school interviews. So I went to Nashville, I went to Austin, I went to Seattle, of course. All of that was relatively in a short period of time. And so I was doing these interviews, and to be honest with you, some of them didn't go superbly, but the one interview that was very different from everyone else's was the University of Washington. And let me tell you how the good Lord ordered my steps. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, I am currently an evening MBA student at the University of Washington. And initially, when I was doing my graduate school search, I was not interested in doing an evening program, even though it made more sense financially because you're still able to work. And another good thing about being in the evening program is that everyone is working, and so you can make connections with people who actually have jobs at great companies. And Seattle has a lot of great companies here: Boeing, Google, Microsoft. So a lot of my classmates work for those companies. But anyways, I created like a spreadsheet of the schools that I wanted to go to, kind of like a pros and cons list, when their deadlines were, what they require, things along those lines. And for UW, I initially was looking at UW and all the other schools for full-time MBA programs. But for whatever reason, when I went to put the due date for the graduate school application into my spreadsheet, I put the wrong date. Like, it was a typo, but it was, you know, a divine typo, I guess you can say. And so when the deadline was approaching for graduate school, when the deadline was approaching, I went to look on the UW website and saw that the application for the full-time program the deadline had already passed. And so I usually don't make mistakes like that. So I was like, well, I still want to see, you know, what UW is about, because I picked graduate schools based on places that I wanted to live, because I, you know, was living in Louisiana at the time. And like, Louisiana is one of those places that it's like, if you're an adventurous person like me, it's like cool to visit, but it's not the best place to live. And I don't mean anything like, I lived in Louisiana for 8 years, maybe 9 years, and it's not a slight towards anybody who lives in Louisiana or who loves Louisiana, but for me it was not the land of opportunity. A lot of crazy things had happened in the last couple years that I had lived there. I lived in the Baton Rouge area, and the Alton Sterling shooting had happened, and some floods had happened, like crazy weather events, and you know, things had frozen over. It was so weird, like crazy things were happening in Baton Rouge. So I decided that when I did my graduate school search, I was going to look for places that I would like to live. And so Seattle was one of those places that I was really interested in living. So since the full-time application deadline had already passed, I decided to apply for the evening class. And interestingly enough, I feel like the difference between the evening MBA and the full-time MBA at UW is like starkly different, because the other schools that I applied to all had regular like one-on-one interviews, but the interview at UW was so different. It was in a group setting. They gave you an assignment before you arrived, and you had, was it 3 minutes to do something. You had 3 minutes to give kind of like an elevator pitch about yourself. You had to do activities with other people in groups, and you were being observed, and you would share the results at the end. I hope I'm not giving away any trade secrets, but the point is that experience was so different, and it really made UW stand out in my mind, and I didn't feel the pressure of being in a one-on-one interview. And while I typically feel that I interview pretty good, I'm learning that that's not a very big strong suit of mine. Yeah, so after going through that whole process and being rejected, this is the first time I feel like I'm saying this out loud, I was rejected by the other schools that I applied to. UW was the only school that accepted me, and it's so weird because I didn't want to apply for the evening program, the evening MBA program. So again, I think that was like some divine intervention type of situation. If y'all hear anything in the background, this object over here is my dog's crate. So he might be jangling, you know, with his little dog tags. But so one of the highlights of the year was getting accepted into UW, especially after having, you know, felt that things were not necessarily going well in my search, because I had not been accepted by the other schools. And so there was a little rift, I guess you can say, that I had with family members, feeling like that was so far away and things along those lines. You know, them of course being happy for me, but being not so thrilled that I would basically have to move across the country to get my education. So my boyfriend had the same concerns because, you know, we are in a serious relationship, and I had asked him even before I applied to school, and I had asked him, like, if I end up going to UW, are you coming with me? And his answer was yes, even though he had his fingers crossed that I would get accepted at a school that was maybe closer or in a more familiar environment, because all the other schools that I applied to were in the South or the relative South, and we had been there before, and so Seattle was like the most unknown place, and all that jazz. So that was a major concern, but he did come with me, and he is, you know, here with me now, which is wonderful. Because I don't know. I mean, Seattle apparently is notorious for people, it's called the Seattle Chill. There's like this theory about people in Seattle called the Seattle Chill, where people are friendly but they are not warm. So an example of that is like if you live in Louisiana and somebody is like, oh, you should stop by the house, we're gonna have a crawfish boil. You can basically count on them having their crawfish boil. You can count on them actually meaning what they say when they say you should stop by or come over or whatever. But in Seattle, they will be like, oh, we'll go to get coffee one day, and never make the plans, have no intentions of being there. People say it's hard to date here, that it's hard to make friends here, and it's you have to form your own community of friends, and people are not, you know, walking around with open arms, and you know, there's no Southern hospitality or anything like that. So had it not been for my boyfriend being here, I don't know how, you know, well adjusted I would be. But that's another highlight of 2018, was getting up and packing all of my things, leaving Louisiana and moving up here to Seattle. And so it has been a little bit of a transition, a little bit of a culture shock. There's a lot of things that I was not aware of that I became aware of once I actually got here. So they have earthquakes up here, like what the heck? Another thing I didn't realize was how beautiful it is up here. Like, I grew up in Houston, which is flat, like basically at sea level. Louisiana is flat as well, but coming up here where there are mountains and there's a lot of water, it is so beautiful. And I feel like people here kind of take for granted that they live in such a beautiful place. Like when I drive home from work, on the days that I do drive, there's a mountain. Like if the sky is clear, there's a huge mountain, Mount Rainier, that has a beautiful view as I'm driving over a lake. Like I'm driving over a lake and there's a mountain view. It is so beautiful. It's great. So that's one thing that has been like almost astonishing to me, is how pretty it is up here. But moving on, another thing about being up here is everyone is kind of environmentally conscious, which is nice because in Louisiana it's almost non-existent. You know, I worked and went to a university. So the university was a little bit more forward thinking than the average person in Louisiana. But so there was, you know, recycling and, you know, some environmental programs and things along those lines, but not to the extent that it is here. Because here there are like 5 different trash cans. Like when you go to throw something away, like if you don't know where to put the items, if you don't know where to put the items, it's almost a little paralyzing standing at, you know, 3 to 5 trash cans trying to figure out which one is the best option for you to put your refuse. So in Louisiana, at best, they had recycling and a regular trash can, but for the most part, it was just one trash can where you threw away everything. In Seattle, they have a recyclable can, they have a compost can, and then they have a regular waste can. There are some, like at UW, they have trash cans that specify the type of recycling. So some of them have, you know, glass only or cans only. And so there are multiple trash cans. And from what I hear, there are some people who like trash shame you. So if they see you putting like a recyclable item in the compost bin, they will like interfere and intervene, which I think is doing the absolute most. But whatever. So yeah, I think that is a little odd, but I do like that they are trying to be quite environmentally conscious. And that's another thing about that, is that they are very big proponents of they're very big proponents of public transportation, which growing up, I feel like public transportation for me and from my understanding was, this is gonna sound weird maybe, it was like kind of shameful almost. It was like, even though my mom, when I was first born, I'm her oldest child, she rode the bus all the time because she did not have a car. I just associated it with being broke. That was my my impression of what riding public transportation meant. And so for up here in Seattle, people are rich up here. That's another thing. You know, not all people are rich, because the homelessness problem here is like off the charts. Like, I grew up in Houston. It's a big city. It does have a homeless population, but it's nothing like the homeless population up here. And I don't know that for a fact regarding numbers or statistics, but for me, seeing like little shanty towns that are made out of tents, I have never seen a homeless person with a tent in Houston or Louisiana. It's like on a different level here in Seattle. Another difference up here is the people. Again, I just mentioned about the Seattle Chill, which some people feel is true and other people feel it's not true. And I myself am a little bit on the fence about it, because the people that I work with are very warm. They're like super nice. So, and interestingly enough, a lot of people are like transplants to Seattle, because Seattle has, in the past few years, from my understanding, because companies like Microsoft and Google and Boeing are there, have recruited a lot of people who are not originally from Seattle to work there. So a lot of the population are people who did not grow up in Seattle. But that's neither here nor there. Anyways, the people are different. It's one thing growing up in the South and knowing that there is a history of underlying racism, and that this is going to sound weird, it's going to sound almost bigoted maybe, but when you grow up in the South, I feel, well, you know what, let me speak for myself. Growing up in the South, I felt as if it was safer to assume that every white person had a little racist in them. And it's, again, it sounds weird, it sounds bigoted, and that's why I'm only speaking for myself, but it's safer to assume somebody has a little racist in them than to find out later. So it just makes a little bit more sense. But the thing was, if people were racist, you could pretty much tell. You could tell that this person had some, you know, bigotry going on. And it was like, you could take people at face value. And the difference up here is that people pretend not to be racist. And they pretend to understand about, you know, social justice issues. They pretend to understand about gender issues, and it's like they're a snake, you know, it's like they're a snake in the grass. They are pretending to have these forward-thinking thoughts, these progressive ideas, when in actuality they hold racist or bigoted or, you know, misogynistic things in their heart. And that's one thing that I kind of miss about the South a little bit, is that you know that people are being themselves, that they are, you know, telling the truth about who they are, about what they think, about how they feel. And unfortunately, up here in Seattle, it's that it feels as if that is not the case. And I don't want you all to feel or to think that I think that Seattle is a place full of fake people, because I don't really think that. I think that Seattle, for the most part, is a lot more progressive than the South. But the thing is that I think that some people put on to become a part of that progressive movement, not really understanding what it is about and not really changing their hearts to be in line with those progressive ideas. And that's all I'm going to say about that. But moving on, also, I guess another thing about Seattle, or another thing I miss about the South, is the food. This became a whole thing about Seattle. And anyways, we moved to Seattle. Things are different, and maybe me and Calvin will do a video about how things are different for us up here. And we'll make a video about that specifically. But this video is supposed to be about New Year's resolutions and the highlights from last year. So probably the two bigger highlights for me were getting accepted into graduate school, beginning graduate school, moving out here to Seattle. So graduate school has been a challenge. Like, it was hard enough, like having to go back to school and get adjusted to that. But it's like graduate school, like it's supposed to be, is really on another level of learning. Like, it legitimately goes much deeper than undergrad ever went. And that has proven to be a challenge for me, even though I just graduated from college in December. And so I worked through college for my undergrad. From almost all of my undergrad career, I worked through college. And having a job now and working through graduate school, I thought would be a little bit more of a piece of cake, and it is just not, okay? And it's not that I'm struggling or anything. It's just, I passed my classes. I wanted to get better grades, but it's like, why? Why want to get better grades when a B will do? I don't know why I was such an overachiever my whole life, but if a B will take the cake, okay, let's do that. So just the academic part of being in school, just that whole situation is interesting and a challenge. But besides that, school is, I don't know, it's interesting, it's challenging, and I don't know, it's hard to describe. So those are the highlights from last year. Now let's look forward. What are we trying to accomplish this upcoming year? So of course, the most popular resolution is about being healthier and losing weight. So of course, that is on my to-do list. Over the past year and a half, 2 years, I have gained a lot of weight. Like, for a while I had kind of plateaued, and even though I was not at the healthiest weight, I was way healthier than I am now. And so after I had gotten into a relationship, my weight kind of went up. And my last year of college, my last year of undergrad, my weight went up as well. It was a little weird. And I can't exactly pinpoint an exact reason. But I will say that I would like to get serious, like to actually get serious about doing something about being overweight. And so my boyfriend and I will be starting a juice cleanse next week and probably putting it on YouTube to kind of mark our progress. So be on the lookout for that if that happens, which it probably will. We're definitely doing the juice cleanse, but as far as us putting it on YouTube, that's the part that I'm concerned about. But anyways, so we're doing a juice cleanse. We're also going to be trying to work out more, and that's one of the things that one of the promises that I need to keep to my dog is that our dog is a bigger dog that needs a lot more exercise, so we need to take him for more walks. And one of the good things about living in Seattle is that it's very dog friendly, and that they have a lot of trails and dog parks and things along those lines, so that's nice. Another goal I have is to get back on track with my YouTube stuff. I haven't put on makeup in a while. I'm trying to make sure I remember all the steps. So yeah, another goal I have is to get closer to the Lord. I will admit that in 2018 I did not do everything that I could do to having a good relationship with the Lord. I didn't attend church as much as I wanted to. I didn't read the Bible as much as I wanted to do or do Bible study. So 2018 was not a good year in the spiritual department. I will definitely say that. So yeah, that's something that I need to work on improving. Another thing that I wanted to improve upon that I, did not do is stop pulling out my eyelashes. So for those of you who don't know, I have a condition called trichotillomania, which is where you compulsively pull out hair. And for me, the hair that I pull out is my eyelashes. I actually have a video on it, so I'm going to post a link in the top right corner for you to check that out if you are interested. And so I have still been dealing with that. Like, for me, trichotillomania has not gone away, and it's something I continue to do and something that I really need to work on, because as you can see, I don't have any eyelashes, and when you have eyelashes, you look so much better with them, and they also serve a purpose. So that's something else that I wanted to work on. I'm trying to decide what color to do for my eyes. I guess we'll go purple. I do want to financial goals. So those are that's my dog. Those are another type of popular goal. And it's, actually very important. Very important to me, because during 2018 was probably my worst financial year in a while. I'm typically very good about managing my money. I, put myself through school and my bachelor's degree, and for the most part, didn't take out any loans. So almost all the money that I had to pay for my tuition came out of pocket, because I had managed my money so well. But once I quit my old job and wasn't really able to find something in Louisiana that tickled my fancy with regards to making the right amount of money, and it just, again, it was not the land of opportunity in my eyes. And so that kind of set me back with a lot of my financial goals, and things kind of got messed up in the credit department. So my boyfriend and I have decided that we are going to focus on getting rid of some of our debts and raising our credit scores, because the goal is eventually to get a home, and all that stuff becomes increasingly difficult when you don't have good credit. So for us, that's a big goal that we're trying to accomplish. Yeah, I think a nice goal would be, a nice financial goal would be to set some money aside for an emergency fund, and then also set some money aside for like a traveling fun because I love traveling, and people say that one of the keys to living in Seattle through the very long winter months, where it is very gray and gloomy, is to travel and, get some sunlight. And so, the way the weather works here, or how I was told that the weather works here, is that June, July, August, and a little bit of September are summertime. The days are very clear. It hardly ever rains during that time period. And it is not the Seattle that you see in the movies, and it's not gloomy and all that kind of stuff. But once fall/winter kicks in, that's when it becomes very overcast every day. It drizzles a lot. It's cool. It's not necessarily cold to me. For whatever reason, Seattle does not, even though it's like the most northern state on, this side of America, or the United States, it does not get as cold as New York or other places that are northern. I don't know why. I'm not a meteorologist, so I'm not 100% sure on that. But what I do know is that it gets very gloomy, and people say that the key to not losing your mind is to actually do something fun. So a lot of people participate in winter sports, which is something that's new to me. Growing up in the South and in Louisiana, I don't know that I had any friends that skied or did any winter sports. If they did, they probably went up to Colorado. But again, I don't recall anybody saying that they did winter sports or anything like that. So that's a little odd in my book. But yeah, people up here take ski vacations and things like that, which to me is a little cost prohibitive. If you know what kind of gear it takes and how much money it takes to actually go to the ski resorts and things along those lines. But that's what I wanted to talk about with regards to Seattle. So I guess those are my only goals for this year. Financial goals: to get rid of some of my debt and improve my credit score, get rid of some of this weight and improve my health. I do want to do a little bit better in school. Even though I did get a B, I do want to improve my grades a little bit. Another thing is to stay organized. I got a planner, another planner. Last year I bought a planner and I only planned maybe 25% of the year in it. So my goal is to be a little bit more on top of my planning and my schedule so that I can fit in the things that I need to fit in, which includes my YouTube channel. And that's another one of my goals, is to make sure that I am not neglecting my YouTube channel and that I'm really working on it. Because last year I had the goal of, tripling the number of subscribers that I had, and I think I only doubled the number of subscribers that I had, which for me is, still pretty good. But it was not where I wanted to be, and that's definitely my fault. So that's something else that I want to work on, and also to stop pulling on my eyelashes. But yeah, that's all my goals or whatever. Y'all, I keep losing my train of thought. I didn't get a lot of sleep yesterday. My sleep schedule's been a little bit off because I haven't had to go to work very much over the past few days. But you all feel free to tell me below in the comments what you are trying to accomplish this year. What is your goal? Oh, that's what I wanted to say. So, another thing about Seattle is that it is expensive. One of the good things about Louisiana is that it was not, the cost of living there is not very high. When we were living in Louisiana, the last 2 years that we were there, we had an apartment, a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. It was in a rural town, but it was a nice size apartment. Again, 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, living room, dining area, kitchen, whatever. that cost us $8.25 a month. And it wasn't even like, you know how they do the introductory rates? Our introductory rate for the first year that we lived there was $7.75, and then it went up $50 to $8.25 once that promotional period thing was over, right? So we moved here, and our apartment, just the base rent is $1,500 for a 1-bedroom apartment. And so the thing about living up here is that they kind of like piecemeal you for everything. Like they charge for everything. When we came up here in, was it June? I think Calvin and I came up here in June to look for apartments, and one of the common things was that if you have a pet, in addition to paying an extra pet deposit you pay per month for that pet, you also pay for parking. That was another common thing. If you had multiple cars, that was an additional charge. So I don't know, it went from being somewhat reasonable to unreasonable when you're paying $20 to park your car. Oh, you have a second car, that's $35. Oh, you have a pet, that's another $50 a month. Like your rent goes up kind of substantially with the more stuff you have, which is weird. Like if I'm living I'm annoyed by that. But anyways, we have a dog, so we have to pay pet rent, which is an additional $50. The good thing about the place that we decided to live is that they do not charge for parking, which is great. And that really works out for us. I think the place that we decided to live is really working out for us. It has a lot of amenities that a lot of the other places that we were looking at didn't have. We have a stackable washer and dryer, which I think is awesome, because a lot of places had communal laundry, and that does not work for me. I can't deal with that, you guys. I can't.